have an unconventional closer idea. Kershaw.
No,
Hello and welcome back to Dodgers Debate. I'm Jack Harris, the LA Times Dodger beat writer, along with our columnists, Bill Plaschke and Dylan Hernandez, to which I ask, guys, which outfield position do we think Shohei Otani would be best at, left, right, or center?
all I want to say is 13 wins. I was taken aback when I heard Robert say yesterday we need 13 wins. They should only need 11 wins to get to the World Championship. And they blew this is the week they blew the bye. And that's the whole story. They blew the bye. Bye, bye, bye.
That's the whole story. You think that overshadows Shohei Otani potentially being in the outfield, having
He's
to be
not going to play there.
Superman for this team?
He's not going to play in the outfield. But I think Dylan made a great point in his column is that he's right where he was with the Angels. I mean, they're asking too much of him. I mean, it's not fair.
I think. I mean, long term. If I mean, oh, I'm sorry. you know, he could.
Dylan, this is a family show.
I'm sorry. I've been doing too many podcasts.
You're gonna make Mark put the little E on our podcast.
I've been doing a lot of podcasts where they let me cuss.
Dylan, is that a cannabis plant behind you?
That is not a cannabis plant behind me.
Okay, just checking.
I think, look, like long, I mean, going beyond this year, if the Tommy John weren't like a thing, I mean, you put him in right. He's got a cannon. There's some, you go on YouTube, there's some ridiculous footage of him making throws. He doubled a guy off one time. I think he was in right field. And I think, guy was on second base, kind of like routine fly ball. Otani just kind of catches it flat-footed, right? So the guy's thinking like, okay, there's no way he's going to throw back to second, and kind of, takes his time getting back, and Otani just like guns him out doubles him off at second base. The first I think highlight of Otani that's on YouTube, it's of him like his first year in high school playing at Koshien, making some like ridiculous like Puig like throw from right field. So
Okay, so Dylan's all in on this idea, apparently.
oh yeah, I mean, look, when the first time, right, that Otani was coming here, obviously, at the time there was still, right, there wasn't a DH in the NL. NL teams were at a disadvantage, and somebody, associated with an NL team kind of asked me, how could we make this work? And I was telling him like, look, like the Japanese convinced you could play, two ways, right? Well, convince them you could do three ways, right? Pitch, outfield, and hit. I mean, I think he'd be a great outfielder. I mean, Logan White, the former Dodgers scouting chief, he said the first time he saw Otani that he thought, maybe this guy could play shortstop. Obviously, like his body's changed. That's not happening now. But I think like athletically, I mean, he can, I just keep him out of center just because I you don't want him like diving all over the place. But no, I think right would be fine. He's played in left before. So I think either one of those, I think you could do it.
Okay, well, for all of Dylan's praiseworthy scouting work there of Otani's outfield, I think obviously, this whole idea is not ideal and is reflective of what I think we can all agree is kind of a flawed and broken roster. This all came up because on Tuesday night, Shohei Otani throws five no-hit innings, as good as he's looked all season on the mound. He comes out of the game. The bullpen blows it immediately, giving up 6 runs in the fourth to the Phillies, and just like a way that I don't know. Dylan goes, boy, I don't really know what I'm gonna write. Like I gotta write that he's good, and then like the bullpen implodes. He goes, there we go. But I mean, it did reflect like the problem that this team has, which is even though the rotation has been better and the offense has been better over the last couple weeks here, the bullpen is still a really big problem. And when you're trying to figure out how to work around it, this is why Otani's name keeps coming up as an idea. Because for as good as he's been as a starter, you think about the idea of having him even like once or twice a series close out a game, it's enticing. Now, the reason that this whole outfield thing has popped up, obviously, is because the way the two-way rule is written, if they were to use him out of the bullpen, he would have to come out of the lineup when he's done pitching. So that would be a way to keep him in. But Like Dylan, you wrote about this, like the fact that all of this is a discussion that Otani volunteers this information after the game the other night, is a reflection of like a roster that has failed him and has failed the team, and I think quite frankly now has put the Dodgers in a situation where first and foremost they're going to need Shohei Otani to do a lot of things for them in the playoffs. Like if they go on an extended run now, it's hard to envision Otani not at some point, coming out of the bullpen and closing out a game or two just based on the things these guys keep saying. I think he'll still be part of the rotation, first and foremost, but they're going to need him to contribute in other ways. And like you said, it has to be kind of surprising or disappointing to him, or if you're just looking at the situation that, for all the money he deferred and all the talent they were supposed to surround him with to avoid having to put him in this kind of situation, suddenly it's like Otani better help carry him. The rest of the rotation better help carry him because the other flaws in this team have become so pronounced that, especially in the bullpen, are kind of preventing even other improvements from other parts of the roster from leading to a bigger turnaround.
Question is, can they pitch more than 5 innings? Will they let them go more than 5 innings once they get to the postseason? They have to.
They have to. They have to. I mean, so Andrew Friedman, we asked him this question this week. He said, I don't know. Potentially, but he also said that they don't want to push him too much. They want to try to remain cognizant of, everything he's doing, the fact he's still coming off surgery. Obviously, like his long-term health is still a consideration here. As a guy who, again, is still only like a few months back into pitching again after two Tommy John surgeries. But at the same time, you know, the reason why the bullpen being bad, I think, is directly impacting like the Otani question so much. And I asked Dave Roberts this yesterday, to which he didn't have an answer yet. But it's like if Otani can only give you 5 innings, suddenly his value as a starter to me is not really as high because if he only gives you five or maybe can only work into the sixth, then you're in the situation that you were the other night when he took the mound, which is he could be perfect. He could give you five no-hit innings, and it doesn't matter because you're leaving too much for the bullpen. And I think that's the difficult part for them to weigh. It's like, so how do we work around this? Is it smarter for us to pitch him a 5 or 6 inning start? And even when Dave Roberts was talking about this the other night, because he said the reason he didn't push him longer in that game the other night with the no-hitter is because this has been their plan. This is what they're sticking to for the rest of the regular season. This is how they, have step by step help him get to this point to still be healthy. So he's not going to deviate from that now. But he said even in the playoffs, you might only be talking about 6 innings. And, you're going to run into some of the same problems here. If Otani tries to pitch into the sixth and leaves 9 or 10 or 11 outs for the rest of the bullpen to try to cover, that's just not a that's a fraught strategy with where the relief core is at the
Not
moment.
gonna work. It was so great last night to see Snell go seven. It was so great to say, okay, the bullpen only needs to get 6 outs. If you can get it down to that, if all of them can go seven, and they all can, and they all must.
I did like how Snell kind of chased Roberts off the mound, right? When
That was
Roberts went to
great.
go.
What a great
You know,
scene.
but kind of going back to the Otani thing here, I think one of the things too is the fact that, you know, with the other starters for various reasons, the fact that you can't ask that of them, right? I mean, the fact that you have to ask the guy coming off Tommy John because, either mentally or physically, he's so much superior to everybody else, right? I mean, the thing is like, I mean, right? Why can't Tyler Glass now? Um, I mean, he's got the stuff. He's got right. But the thing is, you're not sure how he's going to react in that situation, right?
Pitching
Because
out of the
Otani,
bullpen.
yeah, closing specifically, closing out a series, right? There's one guy you can, I think if it's like a game, maybe it's the last game of the World Series, you could ask Yamamoto to do it, right? But with Yamamoto, he's a smaller guy. If you do it in the early rounds, you're not sure how that's going to affect him down the road. Kershaw probably doesn't have the stuff. Maybe Snell, but even there, I'm not really too sure. Again, when I look at him in the playoffs, I think of him in terms of shorter starts. And then kind of Glass now, you're just not sure. So the fact that this has to kind of fall on him there, despite again, them having this alleged like super rotation, I do think kind of doesn't speak great about, I don't know, maybe the kind of the mental side, that those guys have. Um, and yeah, I don't, man, what's going to be interesting here is kind of ultimately like whose decision is this, right? I mean, I do think, look, it's his career. I think ultimately it's going to come down to him. Dr. Alatraj, who performed the surgery and has kind of overseen his rehab, Otani seems to kind of trust him. I'm guessing that Alatraj is kind of like laid out this kind of timeline, right, in terms of like, okay, this is how we're going to bring him back. And I think right now, Otani's just kind of like, okay, I can just kind of go out, right? And when I think that's basically what he's saying when he's like, oh, I'm going to leave it up to the manager. It's like, hey, there's this plan. They're not going to get me hurt right now. What's going to be interesting though is when they get into the playoffs, right? And this guy wants to win. And let's not, and even the fact the other night, right? Because when he brought up the idea of playing in the outfield, somebody just kind of asked, right? This was, so the Otani's availabilities separate into two parts, right? They do the English stuff through, Will Ireton, the interpreter, and then the Japanese media asks some questions. And so in the Japanese media, somebody just kind of asked him, just generally, have you had any conversations about pitching on in relief? And he was the one that brought this up, right? So clearly, the way this game unfolded concerned him, probably upset him. Uh, and this is a guy, keep in mind, his walk year with the Angels, right? We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars at stake for a team that was 4 or 5 games out of, the last playoff spot. He played every single day. He started feeling weird crap in his fingers. He didn't care. He kept throwing until he blew out. So if you kind of leave him up to his own devices, that's what he's going to do. And, the other night I did ask Roberts, like, how much is his say going to be weighed in this thing? Because it is ultimately his career, right? And, now, he might think, okay, well, you know what? We shouldn't, let me be careful here because I'm going to have multiple shots to win World Series down the road. Now you look at this particular roster right now, it's getting
Yeah.
older,
Will you?
right? They're going to, yeah, right. They're going to have to blow this up the way they did the roster when Andrew Friedman first showed up, right? And I don't think, they were able to, back then trade Matt Kemp for Yasmani Grandal. That trade doesn't exist anymore, right? Because everybody in baseball has pretty much they're evaluating players kind of more or less the same way. I don't think, right, no one's taking Teoscar Hernandez's contract off their hands. No one's going to take Mookie Betts' contract off their hands. And I'm not really sure how you go about, rebuilding a team that's kind of getting older like this. And so, if he says like, hey, I want to go, like right now he might think like, okay, well, you know what, you talk about things kind of in the abstract right now. And it's like, okay, you know what, we can do this, right? Maybe I'll start a game here and I could, close out a series or whatever. I think once the games start, this is going to change completely, right? I mean, I was kind of joking with somebody last year, when the Dodgers post those social media pictures, of guys kind of coming to the locker room, showing up for work, before those games. He's got a different look about him, right? I mean, there's something a little psychotic in there. I mean, I compared him to, I joked that he probably had like plastic, like Dexter in his bag, like he was ready to go, you know. And so I don't think that this guy's going to kind of hold back, and they better at least kind of figure out like the decision making thing here. One thing I do know about Elatraj is that one of the reasons I think athletes like him so much is he will ask them. He works with them, right? He takes their personalities and stuff into account. He asks them like, okay, what do you want to do? You know, what's your goal? And kind of adjust it according to that. Okay, I can't get you 100% back up to this point, but I can make sure that you'll be in position to be competitive when you go here. So this whole thing is going to be kind of interesting. I think they have to have a lot of conversations about, what their priorities are and exactly whose call these things are. One thing too, keep in mind, they are basically not paying this guy right now, right? They're paying him $2 million a year. They're raking in a ton of money in endorsements. And I do think that by kind of, right, giving the Dodgers a blank check, he has kind of taken that, right? They are not in a position to say anything to him. They can't say like, well, we're paying you so much money, you're going to do what Juan Soto, if Steve Cohen at some point says you're doing this, he's got to do it. This is not that situation. So again, I think it's going to be really fascinating to see kind of how this all plays out.
Let me put it to you this way. What would you prefer as it pertains to like a 3 game wild card series, which is the first set of decision making they'll have to do? Would you rather have Otani pitch game 1, but maybe only give you 5 or 6 innings, and then you have to figure out the final 3 from the bullpen, which could be easier then. You might have Emmett Sheehan as part of the equation. You can line up other guys, but still. Or would you rather go like Snell and Yamamoto game 1 and 2? You can save Otani for game 3, but if a save situation or something arises in game 1 or 2, suddenly then, you could envision a game where Yamamoto gives you 7 or Snell gives you, 7. And then suddenly it's like, well, if they can do that and then we have Otani, like that's a whole game we can work around without even really having to go to the bullpen. And then if you don't have to end up using him in game 1 or 2, he can pitch game 3. If he does come out of relief in game 1 or 2 and there is still a game 3, then you still have somebody like Tyler Glasnow for that. Like, and that to me is like a really big question because in one scenario you get 5 or 6 innings out of Otani, but you might be set up in a worse spot for that game. Whereas if you get the 1 or 2 really important innings from him at the end of the game, that almost might be more valuable to me.
Well, I think Otani he's their best arm. He's their best pitcher. He's their best big game player. I say put him where they need him the most, and that's in the bullpen. And I say don't pitch him game 1 or game 2, and only pitch him game and maybe you need a game 3. I don't blow him as a starter.
I think it kind of depends on how you view Glass now, right? I mean, to me, look, like I think there are reasons to believe in the guy. He's looked phenomenal at times, right? I think there are also reasons to be a little concerned there about him being the guy that's going to take the ball in a winner take all game 3. Um, and look, they know him better than I do. Um, I wouldn't overthink this, right? Now, I think the one thing is that I do think, you can, I don't know, between Yamamoto, Snell, and Otani, you could kind of, right? I mean, I think any one of those guys could go be your game 1 guy. And that's a very defensible choice. Um, I don't know. I just kind of don't like this idea of like trying to kind of be too cute about it, right? I mean, if you think he's your best arm, then I think you throw him game 1, um, and just try to get this thing over with as soon as possible. I think
Yeah,
probably
but Dylan, you have two great starters in Yamo and Snell. I mean, why not
right. But
save him for?
how about if it gets to game 3 though? And how
Well,
about if and then you use him in relief in one of those first 2
he
games, and
starts
then
in well,
and
The
then you
risk.
can't use him in 3, and now you're stuck with or
not
again.
they
But
cannot lose.
this is why I say I think it depends on how you view Glass now. Like, do you feel if you feel comfortable with Glass now pitching a winner, like your season hanging on Tyler Glasnow? That's what you have to ask yourself. Are you comfortable with your season coming down to Tyler Glasnow? If the answer to that is yes, which again, I think that's a completely defensible position. But if your answer to that is yes, then I think, yeah, sure, go ahead and do that. But that's what you need to be asking yourself is, am I okay with my season coming down to a Tyler Glasnow start?
I think game 1 and game 2 are both they're must wins at this point. They cannot lose one of those games. Too much pressure on them, they crumble. So you need Otani available to save the day in one of those games. You got to win game 1. You got to win game 1. You have to win game 1. And he's your best reliever. You need your best bullpen.
Well,
Keep
he's arguably like your best starter though. Right? I mean, like
No, I mean this
look,
to me is why
I
this
would.
is.
I mean, to me, honestly, probably Yamamoto. If I didn't have to worry about the bullpen,
you
nothing.
start Yamo.
Yamamoto's my game 1 guy,
Yeah, I
right?
agree.
I've talked to people in the organization who's convinced like Snell is their number 1 guy, right? I've talked to people that think it's Otani, right? I think any one of those 3 choices is defensible. But again, I think that if you're gonna use him out of the bullpen, you better be ready to your season coming down to Tyler Glasnow. Let's say they end up losing because Tyler Glasnow's pitching game 3, right? And Tyler Glasnow kind of has one of his deer in the headlight moments that he's had in the past in the playoffs. What are we gonna write? Like I'm writing that they overthought this thing.
Well, they won't get to a game 3 if they don't use Otani and the bullpen. Maybe. I mean, is there every chance they could lose
I
the
mean,
first two?
there is, right? Well, and that's why, like, look, I think like if it's game 2, ninth inning, you have a chance to just kind of end the thing. Go ahead, whatever, throw them in there. But the question becomes like, what if it's game 1?
I don't think you can lose. I
Or
don't think
let's
you
just
can lose.
okay,
If you lose
let's
game
say
1, the pressure on the Dodgers is so immense.
okay,
If they're down to the last 9 innings,
right, but then let's just say they lose game 2 and now it's game 3. Okay, now you're pitching Glass now, right?
if you
And
pitch
again,
Otani out of the bullpen,
I want to be clear here. Like that might be a good choice, right? Tyler Glasnow can be really good. Um, but or let's say you lose game 1. Now it's game 2. You got to win this obviously to extend the series. Do you use Otani? You close him out there and not and lose him for game 3, and now again you're going to go with Glass now instead of Otani game three? Because if any one of those scenarios comes up, like I'm just telling you, my thought's going to be like, oh, they overthought it, right? They're going to lose without having by limiting their best pitcher to 1 inning when he could have thrown five.
But if he doesn't pitch that 1 inning, maybe they lose a series in 2 games.
Look, there's no obviously perfect solution here. The reason we're talking about this, like Jack said earlier, right, is because the team is not in a good place right now, right? They're playing whack-a-mole here, you know, right? I mean, every time they go to the bullpen, I mean, I think what did I describe it as? Like, Dave Roberts is juggling sticks of dynamite, right? I mean, it's just a matter of time. He's gonna drop one of the
It's so
whole thing.
crazy to have Vessi. Have you ever seen anybody before? Vessi was on the field. He was in the outfield, and they called him back. I've never seen that before. I've never seen a reliever run half. They're so confused about
Okay, well,
everything.
here's the thing. Oh, so you do like Vesia, right?
Yeah,
That's the one guy I think we feel
the
okay about.
one guy we sort of trust. Yeah,
Okay, so let's say Vesia. Okay, I mean at this point, I don't know. Is Vesia your closer?
At this point, um,
What are you gonna drag out?
like if it's
Tanner
tomorrow,
Scott? Yeah, if it's tomorrow.
maybe.
Because here's the other thing too. Is I mean, like I think okay,
I mean, you wouldn't in certain situations, sure. I think ideally, look, the most important thing to me over the final whatever 10 games of the season now is that one guy, preferably two or three, but one guy shows you as consistently as they can over an 11 game sample size that they can be trusted as like whatever that put out the fire, close out the game, most important guy in the bullpen thing, that they get at least one guy who's there. Maybe it's Blake Trinan. Tanner Scott has thrown 3 outings scoreless in a row now, and like the stuff is still it's still the best stuff in the bullpen. It could be Vezia, but if they can get even some semblance of like a hierarchy in the pen that they can trust, which is going to be really tough to do, but if they can, I think it helps fix some of these other issues that we're talking about, right? About how to use Otani, how to set up the rotation, how do we make this all work? If they can't, it's going to be exactly what you said, Dylan. They're going to be in a position where there are 1,000 options that all come with big rewards, but big risks. And when this team, front office, leadership group has been put in situations like that in the past, and I think that is different than last October when they really didn't have like any decisions when it came to the rotation and they were just having to play matchups with the bullpen and then punting on games once they fell behind. In this situation, this is the kind of setup in which we've seen them really mess up or overthink how to best deploy a pitching staff. And that's why, if they can't get it figured out, like if you can't get one or two of those guys in the bullpen, like clicking to a point where you can trust them in enough big situations over the next couple weeks here.
Otani, but he becomes your closer then.
Because my read right now is they still don't want to do that. Like every time this comes up, right? Like Dave Roberts yesterday points out, look, this is a really regimented guy who has been making starts 6, 7, 8 days at a time this season, and now we're gonna just ask him to go in the bullpen and be pitching, multiple times a week or something like that's really tough. Andrew Freeman's kind of said the same thing. He says, I see him impacting us as a starting pitcher, but you never know how things are going to play out in the playoffs. We never expected Walker Buehler to come out of the bullpen. Like, I think their hope is that Otani is starting games, and then if there's like a chance to close out the NLCS or an NLDS or a World Series in like a clinching game, like a one-off, then they can bring him in.
Don't you think this is coming from him, from Otani? Because like I mean, he's rehabbing right now. Let's cut the crap, right? This is like he's just so good that he's been able to kind of rehab
Well,
at the major league level.
he's done with the rehab now, but he's been rehabbing up to
Yeah,
this.
but the fact that they're still kind of like monitoring him, right? It's a phase of like kind of rehab. Like, look, they could completely, if they just say this isn't even on the table, right? And
Yeah,
even whatever,
but he's
even
at the point.
and even if we lose, whatever, like we just got to protect his health, whatever. I think like that would go over fine with the fans. I think the reason this is probably coming up is like he's
Ooh,
the one that's like,
I don't know.
I
I think the fans would be pissed if they capped him at 5 innings in a playoff
no,
game.
not kidding, not yeah, but like, or I mean, I'm talking about like this specifically this bullpen thing. right? Like even like the Walker Buehler thing, like Buehler forced that, right? When Kershaw came out and closed out that Nats series in whatever year that was, 16, like he did that, right? I mean, I kind of have a feeling again, like he's the one kind of, trying to look, we need this to, this is what needs to happen, for us to win here. And again, it's kind of like, how do you kind of manage that situation? Right. And I do wonder, because here's the thing though, like I do think you kind of have like a bullet to shorten at least one game every series and that you have Emmett Sheehan. I don't know how you guys feel about him. I like
I
him.
love it. I was going to say
Yeah, so look,
we're not
okay, so
talking
he
about Emmett
goes, so
Sheehan.
Otani goes 5 or 6,
Correct.
right? You
Use Emmett
have
Sheehan.
right, whether it's the Otani start or the Snell start, you can shorten at least one of those games.
And I think that would be the plan if Otani starts. It's like, well, we'll bring in Sheehan.
I have an unconventional closer idea. Kershaw.
No,
You wouldn't. No, I'm saying. I mean, like at this point, you trust Tanner Scott more than you do Kershaw.
the, the Nats.
I know. Yeah, but no, the Nats thing that was because he got his out. He went back to the bench. He thought he was done, and then they told him to go back out there.
I mean, I think what you're really asking is, can you shorten a game with Kershaw in the same way you can envision shortening a game with Sheehan?
No, no,
You
no.
ain't doing that.
I'm talking about
Don't do that
Kershaw.
to
Oh,
Kershaw.
you're just talking about ninth inning
No,
closing?
flat out.
No
easy
way.
closer.
You're not doing that to him. No way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the
Well,
problem
because
is
the reason we're talking about Otani closing, right? A lot of it, I mean, sure, he throws 100, but they have other guys that throw 100 too. The reason we're talking about Otani doing this is because of up here, right? We think that he can handle the moment.
You think Kershaw can handle the moment?
When Kershaw melted down in the playoffs, Plash, you and I wrote horrible things about the man. Okay,
Horrible.
But if we go back and read those things, it's like he melted down in the seventh inning, pitching like on short rest, right? By today's standards, like this is like Superman stuff. Um, I don't buy this. Like, I think when we kind of like, now that we have like the benefit of time and we can step back and look at this, that was just a guy that was tired. That wasn't a guy that was choking. Choking would be pitching on short rest and then like giving it up in the first inning. I don't know, man. If it's like, look, I understand the questions.
I
about
love
the
Kershaw,
stuff.
but
I
those struggles
don't
were
think,
real.
yeah, in the seventh inning,
I,
pitching on
I,
short
Those earned
rest.
runs were real.
okay. I actually this has got me very intrigued. This is a great take. I think the only problem with it, because I actually think what you're saying mentally, like that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't think like the past postseason failures, like Dylan said, those are happening because he was going out there, whatever, his arms ready to fall off. Like if you told
I
him
think
like,
you're
hey, dude,
revisiting history. I think you're
I
rewriting
think
history.
Well, okay, at least I'd say I think right now, if you said who do we trust to mentally handle the ninth innings, Tanner Scott's talking about how baseball hates him. Blake Trinan went on what was a better 2 minute soliloquy the other night, but still one in which he was basically like, "We're doing everything we can, and we can't come up with answers." I think if you're talking about who can mentally handle the ninth inning, like Kershaw could definitely do that at this stage. I think the only problem is that he doesn't get like swing and miss like at
No, he
all.
doesn't. Yeah.
And
Right.
you've seen like in the I would put like the first innings of his last couple starts, like the one in Pittsburgh and then the one
He needs
uh
time to get that junk working.
well, it's even just like once a couple like if he gets into trouble, like an inning can spiral really quickly. Like he gave up
Yeah.
4 runs to the Pirates because some balls got into play, and then he couldn't like put guys away. Like his effectiveness this year has come because you know, he might give up a couple runs in an odd inning, but like over the course of 5 or 6 innings, he's throwing enough consistent pitches to keep guys off. But this is that was an inspired take, Dylan. I really did like that idea.
I mean, look, like and I get like what
Terrible
Flash,
idea.
at some point Flash said, right, and I understand this. You can't do this to him in terms of if he does blow it. I mean, can you imagine the way the fans will react, right? And yes, I do not,
Oh, the fans would have a meltdown if they
yeah,
like announced this. Are you kidding me? They would
we
be
do
like
not.
Plaschke times 10.
Well,
They go
well, I'm,
crazy.
I'm saying if he blows it. Now that said, I bet you if you go talk
No,
to
even
him,
if they just gave the idea,
if
we're gonna
you
throw
if
the
you
ninth
talk
inning
to
to
if
Clayton
you talk to
Kershaw.
him, he will
It's
do
not fair to
this.
Kershaw at this point in his career. He deserves to start the game. He's not built.
Start a game. He's not going to
He's
start
not
anyway.
built to throw.
He's gonna be. I don't know
85
if
miles
if
an
look,
hour
like knowing
in the ninth
Kershaw,
inning.
here's the thing. He would rather like have, okay, they need me as a closer than like to like, oh, like, like let me fill in some innings in some game that we're losing. I mean, I think it's much more disrespectful to use him as a long guy, like almost like a semi mop-up duty than it is to ask him to close. Asking him to close is the ultimate show of respect.
Yeah, but you put him in a bad position
You are.
that,
Yeah.
that he's not physically ready for. Don't
That
do it
is
to him. He's
that
your
is
Hall of Famer, and you're
interesting.
going to embarrass him.
I don't hate this idea entirely though.
But what makes Kershaw Kershaw though is like you talk about embarrass him. This is like a really resilient guy, man. Think of the number of times this guy. I mean, this is why he's Kershaw, right?
I have seen so many October nightmares with him. I got so many nightmares. I've got Kershaw PTSD for October.
I don't know. I think if they did that, he would that would be I would actually be fascinated to see it because I think he would, yes, it would he would relish it for one.
Yeah.
Especially if it's that or again, yeah, like you might pitch some mop-up innings.
All right, so who the fans going to go crazier for if they see coming out of the dugout, running down to the bullpen in the ninth inning, Otani or Kershaw?
I mean, Otani.
Oh, it's Otani.
Otani.
Yeah. I mean, because I mean, yeah. I mean, like, because like 40% of the ballpark now is Japanese. We've talked about how the Dodger fan base, how Latino it is. It feels very Japanese right
You
No.
now.
cannot pitch Kershaw if Otani's available in relief. You gotta get Otani's arm in there.
Yeah.
You
Well,
have
I
to.
mean, again, yeah. I mean, this is a solution for me. Again, if you're going to start Otani like game one or whatever, right?
Man, good. It's some good thinking.
Good
I
thinking.
really like that idea. I think it's just like a little we're 3 miles past where his fastball used to be for it to probably actually work,
I
but
like him more in the ninth inning than I mean. Again, it's look. Otani is a one bullet type thing. I think, right? Unless you take him out of the rotation entirely,
right.
which I don't think they're gonna do.
Right.
So look at the options that you have right now. Who do you want? Kirby Yates?
I mean, I don't think
We don't know. I mean,
at this
China.
rate, I don't think Kirby Yates is going to be on the
I said
postseason
this on
roster.
this. I said this here a couple weeks ago. I had a scout tell me like China looks done, right? I mean, now granted, he looked kind of done last year, and October it kind of turned on, but I mean, this might be the end of the road for him. We don't know. I think Kopech
Well,
has shown some signs of life. Um, I,
dude, he
Well,
can't hit the strike zone.
but
the
I'm
one
not.
point you made,
I
Dylan,
don't think I'm asking him to pitch the ninth.
one point you made a good one is that I can't see having some bad reliever out there in the ninth inning of a game that could cost Dodgers the season, and Kershaw sitting down watching. I can't see that. I would put him in then if you're desperate. That if you other options are used because you don't want to see him watch the season end with Kershaw not in the game.
Since we have thrown a lot of hypotheticals out there, which I've enjoyed. But I think the way this will probably play out is kind of like you said. Otani's going to be in the rotation. There are going to be specific situations, probably in closeout or elimination type games, where he could come out of the bullpen, but it's not going to be a regular thing. And in the other games, you're like, unless you want to go the Kershaw nuclear option, um, they're going to have to I'm telling you, it's going to be Tanner Scott, Blake Trinan, Alex Vezia.
Roki
It-
Sasaki.
yeah, I
Oh
mean,
dear
that's
God,
another
here we
thing.
go.
I mean,
Somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to step up in these last 10
well,
days.
and that continues to be the hope. And you know, my worry now is even if Tanner Scott has a good couple weeks, is he really going to be able to go into the playoffs? And then if things get a little shaky for him at some point, like have the mental resiliency to not let the struggles of this year then impact him then. Even Blake Trinan, who handled like every difficult situation imaginable last year coming out of the bullpen. Like there have been so many innings, even this last one the other night against the Phillies, where it looks like it's there, it looks like it's good, and then suddenly,
It's
he gives
not.
up a double and a walk, and then he's given up a home run to the backup catcher and a 3-1 count, and it's like, what is going on here? And the difficult part for me to imagine or envision, at least right now, because I could see these guys pitching better even over the next couple weeks. Like I said, I've been on this I think Tanner Scott can kind of turn things around train for a little while here, but over the course of a long postseason, can they, can they build enough confidence that when struggles inevitably pop up, it doesn't all just collapse again? And that I have some doubts about. So, but I think
13 wins.
that's right. And you add in there's an extra round of the playoffs we got to go through, but
13 wins.
that's how
Shame
I
on
think
them.
this and that's how I think this plays out though. Is like, yeah, there's going to be maybe at one or two situations in which Otani it makes sense to bring out of the pen, and maybe he can play the outfield if he's got to stay in the game after if the game keeps going on. But yeah, like the reality is they need the starters to take down as many innings as possible to limit the exposure to the bullpen, and
I
then
saw that last night. Yeah.
right, yeah, and last night's the example of how it can work because if you can give like two innings and like Alex Vezia gets a good run of hitters and Blake Trinan gets a good run of hitters, then like those guys don't even have to be quite perfect. Tanner Scott was not perfect in the ninth inning last night. He gave up two hits, but he got out of it. Like that's how this is going to have to work for the Dodgers, and that's why for like I wrote this last night for all of the concerns warranted about the bullpen. Um, the getting the kind of starts like Blake Snell did, getting him through the seventh inning. Like, how different does that feel if they take him out with two outs in the sixth? And then someone's got to come in and finish that inning. And then suddenly there's a whole nother reliever that's going to be needed to close out that game. Like, that's what's going to determine the Dodgers postseason fate, I think. And, you know, it's, it
It'd be
is
crazy.
it is a little crazy to when you go back to the winter and think about all the money they spent and how good they felt about us, like the bullpen in particular. Like we went above and beyond to get Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates and whatever, and then for it to go as bad as it did this year, and for them to still not address it at the trade deadline. Brock Stewart will be back, by the way. That's another guy who could factor into this equation. But again, that's not a still not a ninth inning guy. Like to just circle back our whole conversation here. That's why we're talking about Otani in relief, Otani in the outfield, and it's all to me like if I was a Dodger fan, I would just be
That's
like,
a shame. That's just a shame.
right for a team that again, like you've seen
That's an
cracks in other phases
organizational
this year.
failure.
Yeah, yeah,
Dylan
and
had it right. They did not supported their best player.
or their core because again, like realistically, you look at this, like this year the you don't think there's going to be more struggles from the lineup in future years or from some of these aging veterans in future years they're lucky that the rest of the NL is as bad as it is because that's really like outside of this other stuff that's really the only reason you can still believe in them like the Phillies don't have Zach Wheeler and the Brewers or whatever and the Cubs don't have pitching and the Padres have stunk for the last month to somehow let the Dodgers stay in first place but
Yeah,
um
if the viewers can't tell, Jack is the one that has to watch his team every day.
Yeah.
This thing feels like it's turned into like Jack's like therapy session, right?
It's just I've had to rewrite so many gamers this year. I
All
was
right.
telling the one of the Phillies writers who was there the other night after that Otani game. I'm like, I don't even know if this is like a top three bad bullpen blow up this year. Like it might be, but it's definitely not number one. This one
I
at
thought
least
that one
felt
was
more.
bad because of the Otani homer.
Yeah, I
Of how
probably
heroic,
like it was
how
up there.
heroic that was.
But the fact you go through that game, you go, okay, well, let me think if this is actually like worse than the 20 other examples of these bad kind of games happening is
So
Well,
bad.
I think our producer Mark Potts like signaled for us to end this thing like 20 minutes ago.
yeah, well then you said make Kershaw the closer. So
Yeah.
Kershaw the closer. God, what
No,
an idea.
no,
That is
no,
just an
no,
electric
no.
idea. Damn. I'm jealous you thought of that, honestly. That was so good.
That's a terrible idea. Terrible idea.